Hi, this is Anita Foust, and I'm here to talk to you today about dealing with evil coworkers. I know that somebody out there listening is going through it with somebody on that job, but that's nothing impossible to deal with. But what you need to do is to prepare yourself for making your exit, because it may get to the point where you may have to decide if if my freedom is more important than knocking this person out on this job. We've all been there. So stay tuned for what I would suggest for you to do dealing with evil coworkers. Hi, I'm Anita Foust, and thank you for returning to the program. There are so many evil people that I've had to deal with on the job before my own self. So I know exactly what you're going through. There are so many stories that I could tell. I'll tell you this really good one. I had this dream job that I wanted. Oh my God, it was at this telecommunications company. And on my first day, my boss took me to this woman and said, have lunch with this person. And, I'm thinking that everything is okie dokie. She's a cool person. And the interrogation began. Well, how did you get this job, Anita? In one of those mean girl voices. I wasn't expecting that. I left that behind in high school. I had finished college. I'm up here dealing with somebody who is completely out of her mind, but it threw me. I didn't have somebody to school me on how to react. So that's what I'm trying to do with you. So, I started stumbling through, justifying my existence on the planet Earth, basically. And this woman was dealing with me from pure hatred because she felt like I was not qualified for the job, which I was probably more qualified than she was for her job. But she had the experience and I didn't. So what was I supposed to do? Was I supposed to quit? Was I supposed to go and cry in the corner? I was fired up, ticked off, y'all, but I was trying to keep myself cool. First day on the job, this is what I had to deal with. Now, hell was, my life was in hell because I was there dealing with her. I eventually was able to get away from her, but I met this really cool guy and I told him this story about that. And this is what he told me I should have said. Now, he's a big time jokester and might as well be a comedian. When she said to me, Anita, how did you get this job? My response should have been, oh, I slept with the boss. How did you get yours? And then just laugh in her face, throw her off like that. Now, if you're good at comedy, that would be a really good way to deal with it. But at the time, I wasn't thinking. I have talked to people who have had supervisors who had come in, and it was obvious that their job was to make people's lives miserable and to get people to quit. And some people did quit. But this is what I want to suggest is that you hang in there for as long as you can tolerate. But don't just be hanging in there and not doing something in the background. Of course, you need to be applying for jobs. Every time you acquire a new skill, you need to be updating that resume, even if the job is a dream job and you don't think anything's going to go wrong. The very next day, somebody can be hired who's going to make your life a living hell. So always, always update their resume at all times. Now, I'm old school. I don't know anything about all these different digital ways of applying for jobs. By the time LinkedIn came out, I had started I went blind overnight. So I bought this book. That's right. I bought a book on LinkedIn. And as a matter of fact, I couldn't figure out what it was called when I took the book to the counter. I said, what is this? Because I always bought books on the weekend to improve my skills and etc. And I, wanted to get into social media. I really didn't know what I was doing. So I bought a book. And so around that time is when LinkedIn came out. So what I'm saying to you is if LinkedIn is the way to go, I don't know how these things work because I don't have to have a job. So I don't really need to know how to do this. Hopefully I'll find someone on the internet and I'll be able to put their link in the description below that can tell you how to do that. That's not my specialty. I'm just telling you how to cope with crazy people on the job, evil people. Now, I've read a lot of great books, like, for instance, Louise Hay. I love Louise Hay. Louise Hay says if you're calling people on your job evil, then what you expect? I don't know what world Louise Hay lives in. I mean, she's passed on and gone on to the ancestors now. But when she wrote this, evidently she hadn't had something like that going on the job. But when you read about her life, you know that she has gone through something. But I'm telling you, you better recognize evil for evil. Don't live in this Pollyanna world where someone can convince you that if you call people evil, you got to recognize it for what it is. And then you know how to deal with it. Get your holy water out, whatever. All right. So what I want to make sure that you understand, I've talked about the envelope system and all those different things, turning off your electricity at the flip box, what we used to call the fuse box. All of those are handy dandy old school tips on how to make it from one day to the next. Now I'm talking about emotional things, how people will come on the job to get rid of you. That is evil. You can't call it the opposite of evil, but this is how you have to deal. You have to have a game plan running in the background, updating the resume, applying for other jobs, getting your side hustle on. I talked about Journey with the Hintons and gave you the link last episode. But this episode, we're talking about emotional things, how you have to hold on and try not to lose your cool and lose your job and lose your ability to pay your bills. That's why you have to keep your bills manageable, but you still need to be able to keep your cool. Another story I can tell you is about when I was on this job. This guy was a real hateful person. And so one of the young ladies that worked with me said that she called in to say that she couldn't come in because she wasn't feeling well. So anything that she said, I have a head cold. I'm giving that as an example. He would say, I do too. In other words, I'm here and I have a head cold too. So she was going through the list. So one day she decided to say, I'm having female problems. And he said, oh, okay. He couldn't own up that he had female problems. But these are the type of emotional things that you may have to deal with, where someone tries to one up you, even when you're sick. They'll try to make you feel like you should drag yourself in, even though you're sick. Nope. It is illegal for people to make you come to work when you're sick. It's a violation of the law. But in the meanwhile, you got to have your money together if you get fired to be able to fight them. So this is what I'm telling you to do. When you are able to make money and you can see your way through, they always say have 3 months supply of your bills. I'm going to tell you to go a step further. You need to have your rent paid in advance and have the 3 month supply of money. Have you a nice little cushion, because the last thing you need to be is stressed out and worried about how you're going to pay bills if you get fired. You'll have a little, a better way of feeling about yourself when you know I got my bills paid in advance. You can pay your light bill up, especially if you start flipping that switch when you're not at home, turning off what I call the fuse box. You're going to save so much money on the electricity when you do that. But you can pay up in advance. Let's say you have an estimate that your light bill in the summertime or the springtime when the bill is not that high, you can pay in advance $50 or whatever to make it so that your bill is smaller and smaller. But paying that in advance. There's a man that I used to call Dinky Dog. He was a comedian. He has this YouTube channel called Cooking for Po Folks. And he played in a whole lot of the Friday movies. And I called him Dinky Dog because he played in something else. But I can't think of his name right now. He's gone on to the ancestors too, but his channel is still out there. It's called Cooking for Po Folks. And he is hilarious. But he said because he was in the entertainment industry, he didn't know when he was going to be able to work. So whenever he did get a gig, he would pay his rent up in advance. So he will always have his rent paid. So that's what I'm saying. These are examples of old school ways of dealing with working with evil coworkers. Now, the other thing that you have to do is you have to journal. I recommend journaling for everything. It helps you to release your anxiety and things of that nature. And it also helps you to document who did what to you, what they said, what they did, how they show someone else some privilege, the whole 9 yards, because all of that is very important if something does happen. If you happen to get fired, let's say you get fired wrongfully, and I have been fired wrongfully before, so you won't be by yourself. And I challenged them. I've, of course, filed a complaint, and I also filed for my unemployment, which wasn't a whole lot of money, but I earned it, so why not? Do you know that they challenged my right to have my unemployment? And what they wrote was one sentence, and I had a pile of paper, y'all. Oh, yes, I had documented. I'm telling you something from my own experience. I had a pile of paper, and of course, I won with the Employment Security Commission. That's what we call it here in North Carolina. And do you know they challenged that too? I had to go get an attorney to go with me to the North Carolina Employment Security Commission. Oh yeah, and I did, and I won. This is how bad some people are. This is how evil they are. They had wrongfully terminated me. Like I say, in the state of North Carolina, they can terminate you without any explanation. But if they terminate you based on a lie, that's illegal. They can't do that. Oh, they can do it, but it's up to you if you want to challenge them on that. And I was able to win at that. Oh man, I'm not even going to go into all the different things they had made like I had done, which I had not. And so that's why I won my case. But if I hadn't had all that documentation as to what had taken place, I never would have won my case. I would have just been their word against mine, and it would have been even more upsetting. So that journaling may not be needed, but just in case, it's better to have and not need than to need and not have. All right, now we're going to go on the spiritual realm now and talk about how to deal with these evildoers on these jobs. Now, back in the day when I was documenting and etc., I didn't know about a spiritual way other than prayer and etc. I'm gonna tell you, a lot of people say they get prayed up. I'm always surprised when people say they have to be prayed up, because they look like when they go to work, they just love those people so good. And then you find out that on Sunday, let's say they don't work on the weekend, they have had to be prayed up to go to work on Monday. Now, that's some rough stuff right there. There's more than that you can do for people who want to mistreat you. You can send them some positive energy where they depart from your place of work. They might get a good job offer and get gone, or somebody else might take them down. There are just so many different ways for them to depart. Now, we had an instance here in our community where the people had put up and tolerated with someone who decided that if you didn't have anything in your file, he was going to put something in there. That's illegal. But they put up with it, and then one day he messed up with the shop steward. And the shop steward should have been handling this from the get-go, as far as I'm concerned. But it took that for him to decide to do something. And all of those guys got together and they wrote letters, and that man was gone within 2 weeks. He was sent to another state, and he was fired at that state because he tried those same shenanigans, and it was all that had been written up. But so many wives and so many husbands have to pray for their loved ones and their spouses when they're on these jobs. And this is one thing I have to say: prayer and meditation works, but so does sending those positive vibrations. Not that you're kissing up to them, you're just saying, God deliver them to get a better place to go to. You're not wishing any harm upon them. Well, it works. It works. So let me say this as I get ready to close, is that you can handle it. Stay prayed up, send positive energy for them to depart. Keep your resume updated, keep applying for jobs, get your side hustle on, come up with jokes to deal with insanity when people approach you the wrong way, and journal, keep it documented and hang in there. Remember, this job is just a stepping stone to where you want to go. Hi, I'm Anita Foust. Thank you for listening. Tune in for my next episode and check me out at anitafoust.com. One more thing while I have it on my mind. When you're dealing with your mortgage, it's a little bit different from paying your rent in advance. So before you pay your mortgage in advance, you go see the banker to ensure that the payment is set up properly. Because you could pay it in advance and then they just count that toward something else. Like you're paying the equity, or I can't remember what it's called right off the top of my head here. But I want to make sure that those who have mortgages go and talk to the banker to ensure that it's an actual payment instead of, I can't think of what it is, but take my word for it. It's better to be safe than sorry. I don't know if you have coupon, everything has changed so much since back in the day, as I like to call it. But the best way to do this is to go and talk to the banker to ensure that your mortgage is paid properly, so that, let's say you're paying it's December and you're paying your January and February mortgage as well. And you want to make sure that that's handled properly. Just want to make sure I told you that.